we're constantly shifting into alternate universes as we speak, and that expansion of infinite universes is our reality as we know it in time. So therefore, if there are other universes, they're next to ours, and this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe.
Hey everyone, Seize the Now, and before I get into the meat and potato of things, Nelson Mandela, born in 1918, was a South African anti-apartheid revolutionary. He spent 27 years in prison for his activism and played a crucial role in ending apartheid, which is segregation in South Africa. He then went on to be the first South African black president in 1994 until his retirement in 1999. He passed away in 2013 in his home, surrounded by loved ones. Or did he? So this is where it gets weird. Supposedly Nelson Mandela died in the 1980s in prison. People swear they remember it that way. Some people remember being weirded out when the story broke out that Nelson Mandela had died in 2013. And some people say they even remember his funeral being aired in 1980. But that's not what happened. Nelson Mandela was let out of prison in 1990 at the age of 71. Even though it's undeniable that he died in 2013, people still think that he died in the 1980s, which gave rise to what most people know as the Mandela effect, the theory. Originally coined by Fiona Broome when she talked about the puzzling death of Nelson Mandela at a conference, the theory grew when she created a website detailing similar events when you remember something one way, but in actuality it never happened the way you remembered it. Some people say it's us diverting from one universe to another, and supposedly it's connected to deja vu. You know that one thing where you go somewhere and suddenly feel like you've been here before, even though you've never been there in your life. Deja vu is us having memories of another version of us from another universe, or universes are overlapping and there is a transfer of information between universes. And because information is traveling from universe to universe, it creates a buffer that we perceive as a memory rather than experiencing it in real time. And it has to deal with CERN. So for now, in this part of the video, I will list a few examples that fall under the Mandela effect category, and you'll be surprised what actually is rather than what we believe we think. The first one, obviously, that Nelson Mandela died in 2013 and not in the 1980s, yada yada. This next one, if you're familiar with the theory, should know that the Bear-Stein Bears are actually the Bear-Stain Bears. Like, what? Huh, you look at that. The bears are named after the authors. I read these books as a kid, and so did the other children. But why did even the teachers call them the Bear-Stein Bears? Don't you think, I don't know, a college-educated person in charge of teaching children how to read would pronounce it correctly? I think honestly people just mispronounced it all the time because Bear-Stain sounded weird and Bear-Stein sounded better, but didn't bother correcting themselves. Anyways, next up, we're going to talk about this thing. If you picked this one, then you are wrong. I remember as a kid, I had a blue shirt with the Fruit of the Loom logo. And of course, it had the cornucopia on it. And I always thought that the cornucopia was the loom because it looked loomy. And of course, there are several examples of this on the web. Like this, and this. To be honest, I just think someone made up the cornucopia and sold a bunch of bootleg Fruit of the Loom shirts, because most of the proof are shirts with tags with different manufacturing companies or lettering on them. I think they just add the cornucopia in. It ties the whole logo together. Moving on. In the 1990s, comedian Sinbad starred in a movie called Shazam, who plays as a genie and goes on an adventure with 2 kids. However, this never happened, despite many people claiming to have vivid memories of it. I personally don't know anything about this movie, but people on the Mandela Effect Reddit page say they do. I have seen the physical VHS in real life and held it on my hand in 1998. That was the last time I remember seeing it. It did exist. Can't make up the memory from nothing if it didn't exist. The most common explanation for this is that people are mistaking it for Shaquille O'Neal's Kazam, with similar names and genies involved, but that's where the similarities end. the plots are completely different. People on the internet will die on that hill saying they saw a movie called Shazam starring comedian Sinbad. Anyways, moving on.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's this one. Right off the bat, I already know it's this one. I do vaguely remember some people drawing Pikachu with the tip of the tail being colored, but both can look correct. Despite Pikachu being an iconic character, people can still get it wrong even if they've seen it many times. Which brings me to another iconic character, Curious George. His tail, or rather lack thereof, one is non-existent. I remember, and I know I keep using my past memories for these examples, but that's the whole thing with the Mandela effect for everyone. For me, I remember him having a tail in the 2006 Curious George movie. It has a nice soundtrack with Jack Johnson's Upside Down song, and Will Ferrell plays the man in the hat. Well, in the movie, I remember him using his tail to lower himself down from a tree branch, but that was such a long time ago. I was like 9 at the time. I feel like for this one, it comes down to being that George is always described as being a good little monkey, which is why people think he has a tail. But actually, he's not a monkey, he's an ape, which are both primates. Did you know the Monopoly Man never had a monocle? Now, this one ain't too bad considering that he looks like he should have one, but honestly, I think people are just mistaking him for the Peanut Dude because he has one. Anyways, moving on. For this part, there's just way too many examples of misspelled shows, companies, etc. So we will do a lightning round. So let's get started. Sex and the City, not Sex in the City. Febreze is actually spelled
Febreze.
Oscar Mayer has an A in it, not an E. Skechers doesn't have a T in it, and I will die on that hill. It does have a T. The fruit in Fruit Loops is spelled
Froot.
Kit Kat has no hyphen. Cheez-Its now has a Z in it. Double stuffed Oreo only has one F. These people are called
The Flint Stones, not the Flynn Stones.
Jiffy is just Jif. Judge Judy never used a gavel. Hitler's eyes are blue instead of brown. Mona Lisa now smiles. It's Looney Tunes with tunes spelled
Tunes,
which doesn't make any sense because tunes is part of the word cartoons, and it would make sense to have tunes in the name. In Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the evil queen actually says magic mirror on the wall, not mirror mirror on the wall.
Famous Star Wars line is, "No, I am your father," not "Luke, I am your father."
The song Champions by Queen never ended with "We are the champions of the world." It actually ends with "We are the champions," and then it ends. Famous line from Forrest Gump is actually said like this:
"Life was like a box of chocolates."
In I Love Lucy, Ricky Ricardo never says, "Lucy, you have some splaining to do." I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, said on the Mr. Rogers TV show.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
Morpheus from The Matrix.
Never says, "What if I told you?"
Everything you knew was a lie.
Ironic, isn't it?
Have fun with that information, knowing that the world that you lived in never existed. To give a little backstory on this video, in 1989, Beijing Tiananmen Square, a bunch of protesters gathered together due to a number of reasons. On June 3rd, they sent a bunch of troops to arrest, crush, or even kill any protesters, which led to the name the Tiananmen Square Massacre. Well, why does this all matter? Well, on June 5th, is when the tank man stands in front of a few tanks, and he even climbs on the first one. Then a couple of guys rush in and pull him off and push him off into the side, never to be heard from again. But is that really what happened? Some people say he was ran over, but sadly that proof exists in another universe, existing in someone else's memories, like this guy on Reddit.
Alright, Tankman totally got ran over. I was born in '86, and it was a horrible thing to see as a kid. In fact, I would even say it was pretty traumatic. And for years I questioned people seeing that were also traumatized. So I wish that the tank man did not get run over, that a more peaceful version existed, that due to the altering of this event, China or the PRC would become a better country towards its people.
Now, I remember seeing this video a long time ago. Obviously, I wasn't born at the time, but I do remember that he wasn't run over. But according to this guy and many other people, he was. Which does raise the question, how many other changes in history have happened and for how long? Now, that's a question we wouldn't know the answer to, but maybe I could give a little explanation. In 1954, a large particle physics laboratory was created by a number of European governments based in a suburb of Geneva on the France-Switzerland border. CERN is the site of the Large Hadron Collider, the world's largest and highest energy particle collider. The purpose of the Large Hadron Collider is to use electromagnetic fields to accelerate particles to extremely high speeds and smashing the particles into a billion pieces, to create smaller and new particles to better understand the building blocks of life. Sort of like a kid breaking an egg to see its insides. Then in 2012, the Higgs boson particle, dubbed the God particle, was discovered at CERN, which is evidence of the existence of the Higgs field, the origin of mass in the universe. These experiments are looking to how our reality works, and it can come at a cost. Now begins the weird part of the theory. Why are we having all these Mandela effects? Now, for those who were around during 2012, know that the world was supposed to end December 21st, 2012, because the Mayan calendar ended on that day. It was prophesized that the end times were coming, and it just so happened that CERN was experimenting with the Large Hadron Collider, adding fuel to the fire. According to some scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson, says the collider can create a vacuum bubble that, like a black hole, that can swallow up the Earth. This process will happen so fast that no one will even notice. The black holes created by the particle collisions swallowed everything around it, like what Max Laughlin said at the beginning of the video. The CERN experiments altered the weight of one electron, causing the universe to be destroyed, and so our consciousness shifted into the universe directly next to it. This happened so fast that no one knew what happened, causing us to jump into the next possible parallel universe. Only this universe has smaller differences. But there's a problem with the theory. Why doesn't everyone remember the same thing? Like the Fruit of the Loom having a cornucopia, or Curious George having a tail. The particle collisions somehow created wormholes instead of black holes. It is often theorized that black holes are wormholes that transport anything that goes in them to another location, or maybe to another universe. So these wormholes that are created are ripping the fabric of space and time, connecting our universe to another universe identical to ours, only with small differences. And through those connections, info is leaked into our universe and vice versa, causing the Mandela effects to happen. That's why there's two kinds of people. People who remember things from their universe and people who remember things from this universe. Assuming this all theoretically works, which it doesn't, because it's a wildly extreme theory. And I will probably always say this, but the simplest answers are usually the right ones. Folks at CERN have reassured us that the Large Hadron Collider has a very tiny chance at causing us harm. They've shut down theories, claims, and rumors about things that happen at CERN. Physicist Michikaku, talking about the possibility that CERN can destroy the Earth or the universe, says that,
In my opinion, if an event is so rare that it will probably not happen in the lifetime of the universe, then we physicists should say to the media that it will not occur, period.
meaning that the chance that the Large Hadron Collider could kill us all, the probability would be close to zero because the possibility of it being so small. But the media knows how to spin a story that will get them views. So to explain why the Mandela effects are happening to all of us, let's run a scenario. You and your classmates are sitting in class and the professor is teaching when a random guy comes in and takes a bag and runs out. You then have to describe what he looked like. would you be able to do it even if it just happened right in front of you? Well, then that's just what happened when this professor did it as an experiment for his class. A professor teaching a class when a guy comes in and takes a bag and the professor runs after him. He then tells the class that they are now witnesses to a crime and must describe the perp by describing his shirt, pants, and hair. And of course, this all being set up by the professor. Behind the scenes, we see exactly what the guy looks like. A white dude with slick black brown hair, a two-toned light brown jacket, and a pair of jeans. The professor then calls to some of the students to describe what he was wearing, and of course, they get some things wrong.
I thought he had like a beige fleece thing on with darker beige patches on it.
It was a tan vest and it had black lining.
He had a long sleeve shirt on with a stripe over the middle.
I thought he was wearing khakis.
Then the professor asks to describe his hair.
So most of you didn't feel you remembered anything about the face at all? Wow. His hair?
I said it was kind of mid-length, blonde, and shaggy.
It was blonde, though. I had blonde also.
The professor shows his students what the perp looks like. And of course, all the students, they are in disbelief.
This is the perp. This is Ethan.
That's not him. That's him.
But what is also interesting is that the professor then tries to influence their memory.
How many of you realize that this is a trick and that isn't really him? Put your hand up high if you realize that we brought a different person in.
I definitely don't think that was him.
How's he different?
His hair is slicked back, and I think he's wearing different jeans.
And I saw his vest. I don't remember seeing a jacket.
Put up your hand real high if you did think that the guy who came in was the perp.
Fewer than 10 students raised their hands.
That just goes to show how bad our memory can be. I'm not saying we're like dumb or anything like that, but getting the name of a book series or the features of an iconic character wrong can happen to us because our memory might not be all too reliable, even if people swear they remember it differently. Our decisions can be influenced even in a court jury. Take a look at what Neil deGrasse Tyson says.
Does anyone think they would not be able to convict based on the kind of information and evidence that's been presented? If the only evidence available is eyewitness testimony, then everything I know about it tells me I should not trust it on the level where you end up putting someone in jail. So I could not convict if that's the only evidence you have. What the judge said next was, are there any other jurors, like juror 14, who needs more than one witness before they would be able to convict? The person in front of me said, Your Honor, that's not what he said. And I resisted with all my might to say, Your Honor, you were eyewitness to what I said 20 seconds ago and got it wrong. Yes!
Human memory is super malleable. According to Elizabeth F. Loftus, an American psychologist known in relation to the misinformation effect, false memory, and criticism of recovered memory therapies, says that
people can be made to remember childhood memories that never happened.
she showed that a person made up those memories simply by showing them fake letters that the person claims to have lost at a mall as a kid, which means that they're just incorporating information and memories from other influences into their own memories, which is called the social contagion of memory. And most of the time, this happens online. When people come across a detail that feels just right, they get attached to it even if it was unintentional. And then that rewrites their memory into believing that that detail has always happened, which leads to a large group of people going online looking for like-minded persons and talking about it, otherwise known as
shared information bias. A cognitive bias where group members spend more time and energy discussing information that all members are already aware of, and less time and energy on information that only one member or a few members are aware of. So because a large amount of people remember it that way, then it must be true.
Now, to further explain why our memories are such and the connection between Mandela effects and deja vu, in layman's terms,
our memories are formed by activating the neurons in our brain and sending signals into our short-term and long-term memory banks.
I think. When it comes to long-term memories, they are filed away. And when we retrieve them, they come back with a little fade, meaning that we are beginning to forget some details. According to neuroscientist Karim Nadar,
he says that memories can be manipulated, changed, and sometimes they need to be rebuilt every time they are recalled.
And deja vu is caused due to weak connections between parts of the brain that deal with memory recollection and familiarity. So if you're experiencing deja vu, you're lagging, bro. And due to this lag, it disrupts the recognition memory systems, which gives you a false sense of familiarity. Familiarity. I can't English, bro. So in all, Mandela effects are just a can of sliced bologna. But does this raise the question, can we trust our memories or even our reality? This goes to show that our unreliable memories can be manipulated, not in the grand sci-fi death ray sense, but more in terms of that we eat up the narrative served to us that we didn't notice was planted by others with their own goals and intentions. Maybe there are people behind the scenes shaping society to move their agenda forward. Well, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? That's it for this video. I know people misremember things, but please remember to subscribe, like, and yada yada. You already know. Deuces.